Hi, welcome to Ladies of Another View on Back. I'm Patty, your host, and we have two other hosts today. We have Carmen and Jan joining us, and we have you joining us. So we're going to have an exciting show today. First up, I'm going to introduce Andres Guilarte, and he is from Venezuela, and he has quite a story to tell. He's an activist for freedom, and while he was going to school, he had to contend with things like final exams, tear gas, no groceries on the shelves. And he came here in 2019, early 2019. He's with Young America's Foundation. He's also touring the country telling people what Marxism and socialism is like and why we might not want it here in the United States. Welcome to the show, Andre.
Welcome.
Thanks so much, Patty, and everyone and all of you for inviting me to this show. It's a pleasure.
Glad to have you. I want to hear your personal story, and I have a video we're going to watch first because it really gives you're narrating the video, and it tells people what exactly happened in Venezuela and why you are so motivated to warn us from moving in the kind of direction that you experienced firsthand. So let's watch the video.
I don't know if Americans can imagine seeing your country completely destroyed.
Breaking news in our world lead, Venezuela may be on the brink of no return right now.
This is what it's come to in Venezuela. Emergency surgery by flashlight.
A massive shortage of food and aid in the country is leaving thousands of Venezuelans literally fighting for their lives.
In a single generation, Venezuela went from being one of the richest countries in the world to one of the poorest.
Hundreds of Venezuelans are fleeing the country
in a socialist utopia that now leaves nearly every stomach empty.
But here in America, during the pandemic, seeing all of these empty shelves at the supermarkets was a flashback to Venezuela.
Store shelves nationwide are dwindling or totally empty. This morning, lines outside a grocery store in Central Florida with anxious shoppers.
The similarities with Venezuela don't stop there. To see people being asked to report on their neighbors.
Mayor de Blasio is asking New Yorkers who see anyone violating the social distancing order to report them.
The general lack of trust.
Some people are ratting their neighbors out, calling the police.
And the U.S. is now facing the kind of economic uncertainty that was part of everyday life in Venezuela.
A stunning report just out. It shows a record-shattering 6.6 million Americans filed for unemployment benefits last week. That is double last week's record report.
From sports to concerts to the theater, billions of dollars are being lost because of the cancellations as the coronavirus spreads.
They told us the hardships would be temporary, but things just got worse.
In this crisis, Americans are getting a taste of what it's like living in a socialist country. Scarcity, mistrust, massive unemployment, and uncertainty.
So please, do not take your freedoms for granted.
Okay, Andre, that is scary, but I'm guessing a lot of people are watching, they're saying, you know what, that was temporary. It's over. We're good to go now. It was just a temporary thing. We're not Venezuela. What do you think about that?
Well, Patty, what people have to understand about that video, that it's only one part of the whole project that we're doing with the Fund for American Studies. That was a response to the beginning of the pandemic. We were starting seeing, the heavy consequences of pandemic, and that was not only at that point. We're going to start seeing more consequences of the lockdowns in the future. But at that point, not only here in Washington, D.C., where I'm, but many places in the U.S., we saw those kind of things. Empty shelves, we saw lines, we're seeing people snitching on others, or even until this day in different situations. And I think that the main goal that we wanted to do with that video and that snapshot in time of what happened at that point at the beginning was to let people know that the feeling, the atmosphere that people were getting during the first stages of the pandemic because of the lockdown, because of the mistrust from government to the citizens, that was a snapshot also in Venezuela. That's what we wanted to picture to people, to understand that if that situation continues in the long run, that will be even more resembled to Venezuela. Well, thankfully, we have seen that that is not the case so far. We have seen that here, for example, capitalism has rise to the occasion. So we have seen businesses, if they are being allowed, with like some states in the South and some other states, to being allowed to go back to businesses. Well, we're starting seeing people again going back to the freelance, going back to the economy. But that's a reminder that policies like we saw in the beginning of the pandemic, and we're seeing in many states that they want to establish for the long run, those kind of policies are highly resembled to an authoritarian state.
When you say those kind of policies, I was wondering in Venezuela, I remember probably the main thing that caught my attention was just that the dollar in Venezuela was worth nothing and what you were having to pay for a loaf of bread and how that came about. Did you see the government moving in a way in Venezuela like what we've seen go on in America now the last several, well now especially with the new administration that's kind of like more and more government very quickly into our lives as far as what we can and can't do and what's going on with our monetary system and just all of the things as far as our debt, all of that. Did you see that in Venezuela as well?
Well, Venezuela, of course, is a different background in how the crisis started in Venezuela. But there are many similarities, not only with the U.S., with any other country that wants to centralize the economy, that wants to centralize and use laws to, make the whole planning of the society. We saw that Hugo Chavez, the president that was in Venezuela in 2000 and 2012, he implemented a lot of policies to control exchange, to control prices, to start confiscating businesses from small to big businesses. And it was all within a narrative that had to attack the elite, that it was part of the people. And we had a huge amount of rises of the minimum wage, for example. And each time that the minimum wage was risen, people were like, well, now we're going to get poorer. So you can see in Venezuela how socialist policies lead you to the ultimate conclusion where you lose your identity as an individual and you become completely dependent on the ones in power, in the ruling party. So here in the US, we're seeing that this administration, among the many things that they're doing, their vision of the economy is to centralize the economy. They want to eventually to implement policies to control some kind of businesses, to control what people do or don't do. They're going to start spending like crazy, like they have done, and only this administration, by the way, the whole system of the U.S. has been spending like crazy for the last years. And we also saw that in Venezuela. Even before Hugo Chavez, in the 80s and the 90s, we had a huge debt. And the solution, as always, of many countries and government is that when there is debt, we're not going to stop spending. We're going to start printing more money, like we're also seeing here in the U.S.
Okay, when you said they raised minimum wage and some people said, uh-oh, now we're in trouble. Now we're going to get poor. Explain, let's just talk about what is the danger because, people want to make a living wage. We don't want to be against decent pay for a hard day's work. But what is the danger here with the spending and increasing wages? Like what happened in Venezuela?
Look, what happened in Venezuela, first of all, because of the price control and the price of the exchange that lasted until 1 year and a half ago, that they released the price of change. Between that period, having dollars or euros from Europe or any other currency was mainly making you rich because our currency, the Bolivar, was completely on the floor. Right now, we have such a high amount of inflation that Bolivar is like the comparison with $1 is like cents of a cent of a cent. The biggest bill of Venezuela is like a trillion bolivars. So if you start comparing that, you have to wonder, how did that happen? Well, it started happening because the government was just printing a lot of money, increasing artificially the minimum wage without actually caring how a minimum wage is paid. We all understand that the economy doesn't work like that. It doesn't work with executive orders. The way the economy works is by creating value. And the ones who create value are the people, the entrepreneurs, the people in the street, the citizens are the ones that create value. You don't create value by signing something and suddenly you start seeing an increase of minimum wage. We saw businesses in Venezuela when there was an increase in minimum wage, they knew that they had to fire people because they were not going to have the money to pay for them because they were not creating more value. They were just being told to increase how much they pay to people. And I'm just thinking like you. we all want to earn more money. That's the whole idea that people go out to the street and wake up to increase the financial liberty, to have more money for them and for their families. But if you don't get to that point because someone in an office suddenly, by magic, is going to create more money in the street or by printing that money, eventually, if you don't start creating value that supports that money, you're going to have problems. Just like we saw in Venezuela, we saw in other countries around the world.
Okay, Andre, we're going to take a break right here, and then when we come back, we will talk a little bit more about this with Ladies of Another View on Beck.
Respect, innovation, trust, and excellence. These core values can be seen in every building built by Straightway Construction. In the community for over 15 years, Straightway Construction has become the premier construction company for commercial projects. From dirt to design and framing to finish, Straightway Construction is your #1 choice. You won't have to look far to find a project that has that Straightway touch. Call them today or go online to straightwayconstruction.com and let them make your vision a reality.
Watch No Filter with me, Debbie Schlussel, for no-nonsense, unfiltered analysis of the news that matters to you. You'll see engaging guests.
It began a 444-day nightmare.
Entertaining analysis. And it has everything to do with something that happened in history. And honest movie reviews. Trust me, this is just atrocious. No Filter with Debbie, weeknights at 10 p.m. Central on Beck News and online at beck.news.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
Pub 21, your one stop for fun, drinks, and food. Our spacious facility provides COVID-safe fun for you and all your friends. With nightly bingo and specials, you can be sure there's something to do for everyone. If you're staying in for the night, we've got you covered just across the way with Pub 21 Liquor. We have a wide variety of options, from wine to whiskey and everything in between. Stop in today at 1014 South 12th Street in Bismarck to see what all the buzz is about. You won't be disappointed.
40 years ago, Aero Service Team started with one truck and lots of hard work.
Times may have changed, but the hard work that we put in to get your lives back in order after fire, water, and disaster hasn't.
Over the years, we've seen so many families lose their belongings due to water and fire damage. Restoring homes back to the original state has made every hour of hard work well worth it.
Thank you for trusting our family with yours.
When disaster strikes, you only have to make one call. Aero Service Team does it all.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Beck, and we are once again joined with Andres Guilarte, and he is from Venezuela, and you are here doing, you're an intern right now, right? At the Cato Institute in Washington, D.C. since 2019?
No, actually, that's a little confusion sometimes. No, I was an intern when I arrived to the U.S. That's how I arrived, thanks to the internship. Right now, I'm an outreach fellow and I speak with the Fund for American Studies. And I'm also a speaker with Turning Point USA, Young American Foundation, and others.
And I do have the website we can put up just for people if they want to learn more about Young America's Foundation, who want to help save America, keep our freedoms, and inform young people that a lot of people, Andre, I'm seeing a lot of people that think socialism is a good idea and they're pushing for it. And you're here to say, no, 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 you've got it wrong. Socialism ruined Venezuela, right? Is that what you saw happen before your eyes?
Yes, I saw that. See, Patty, when I was a child, I was born in 1994, And, you know, I always tell people here that I have the two contracts because I had a really good child. I mean, I was raised by a single mom. We had a sister. We never knew our fathers. And my mom, in that economy in the 90s, in the beginning of the 2000s, I mean, she was able to fully support everything that we needed. So he always has been an example of how, with your own work, you can achieve what you want and you can support your family. But then when the crisis started to really impact in the country between the 2013 and 2014 and so on, I start seeing how that same person, my mom, all their savings went south. We started having a moment where I was wondering if I was going to have dinner or breakfast. When I went to college, I was already ready that if I had breakfast, then I was not going to have dinner. And sometimes I would have to struggle between buying books and eating lunch. So I just imagine, I tell people, picture yourself that you're born today in Venezuela. You know, what would happen if I were born today in Venezuela with the same circumstances? That's when you start seeing childs with a lot of malnutrition. Moms started just struggling and desperate to try to feed their own sons. And all of that happened because not only because of the direct socialist policies of Hugo Chavez since he won the presidency in 1998, but also what's the consequence of bad management by the governments before Hugo Chavez. You know, always all these authoritarian regimes, all these socialist politicians, they just didn't came up from one day to another. There are antecedents, there are consequences, there are reasons, and most of those reasons are because the ones in power and people in general to society doesn't actually care too much about their freedoms, only when there is an attack against them, when you start losing them. That's what we saw in Venezuela.
Well, we kind of talked a little bit about this during the break, but you know, what can you do to encourage people? Like here in the United States, we have a lot of people that are just standing in line for the handouts from the government, extra unemployment on top of what they're already getting. It's more enticing for them to not work and not contribute to society. How do we turn that around?
Well, since I understand that's a problem, there is people that actually, I think we see that more in California, for example. We've seen a lot of reports of people that they say like, well, just with that, what I get from employment, that's it. Or even in other countries, not just in the US, also in Spain, people is going through that. And I think that's a problem where we start feeling, you know, the benefits from all of that, from the government, from many other sources. And we start forgetting that the reward that you actually get from getting that from yourself, you know, when you start telling people that I try to do that when I make the touring in college campuses, is to, you know, show them what is the ultimate conclusion of just depending on the government. The ultimate conclusion is Venezuela. That's what you will get in the future if you start just not caring about your liberties, not caring about earning your own stuff, and just depending on the government. Because when you depend on some people somewhere in the country that have power and are in an office, if those people make really bad decisions, and they usually do, well, you are going to be directly impacted by that. Otherwise, will be that your own savings, your own work is dependent mainly about you. Then if you go bad, it's because your own decisions. Not many people understand that because from many years in this system, there has been the tendency to increase the dependency of many people. So I try to show them what will happen that if you go run down that road and what can happen when you get rewarded like that. And I think my mom is the perfect example that I tell people, what is the reward when you're actually caring about yourself? And well, I also tell them what it's like coming to the US when you come from a country like that. What is my experience these 2 years in the US? I have come to realize the sky of opportunities that you get when you start earning your honest work, when you start actually earning something for yourself, how you can make a living of that, and that's highly rewarding. When you know that that you can suck your own the fruit of your work, that's on parallel to just depending on the government. I know that because that's how it is in Venezuela.
Mm-hmm. You know, can I just kind of jump a little bit over to the Young Americans part? We were talking about how you're going around the country and talking about this with folks, but part of the Young America Foundation, it's The Center for Entrepreneurship and Free Enterprise, isn't there parts of that organization that go into the high schools and the colleges more so and concentrate on hitting students with the reality of what's really real, for lack of a better term, because it's getting more and more bred out of our curriculum in our schools?
Well, you got the correct word. Real is what we have to fight for. I mean, it show the reality. And I know that Young Americans Foundation, they have several programs. They do that kind of stuff. When I do events with them, I just go to college campuses mostly, but sometimes there is also events to go to high school students. But mainly with my organization, the Fund for American Studies, there is many programs to not only speak with students in high school, but to speak with the teachers, with their professors, which is something that we also kind of forget in this issue of how the rise of young people with socialism is not only a matter of their own students, it's also a matter of who is teaching them, what are the professors telling, how is that? Many parents here in the US have absolutely no idea of what happened in a classroom. Most people don't have any idea. And I think that's a conversation that more people should have.
Yes, I agree. Totally.
Yeah, it sounds new and exciting, and young people are like, yeah, we want something new. And so socialism sounds like a great idea, but they don't even really know. And are you, we only have about a minute left, but how are you being received? Are you getting any kind of pushback because they don't want to hear this?
Well, I receive positive, because when you reach out to these people, even if they don't think like you do, which is the majority of people that attend my hearings, is that, hey, when I'm showing them, it's a reality. You can't push back against the reality that I'm showing you. I show you what you saw in the video, what people can see in the presentations online. Is the reality of what people is struggling. You cannot say that what happened in Venezuela is not real. So when you start by that, we can have discussions about if they prefer a socialist democracy like in Scandinavia, which is completely false. But in reality, socialism is Venezuela. So I haven't had any hard pushback from that. The only people that they still believe that socialism is actually the path forward for being happy, which is not.
Well, thank you for coming and not like being on this show today and going around the country and speaking, because you're doing this from your heart.
Right.
You know, I didn't pay you to come on, but you're saying, you know, this country is, there's a lot of good things in the United States, and we have some freedoms here that you don't want to see us lose. And like you said, you experienced it in Venezuela, so they can't just say, oh no, it won't turn out that way. You're saying, well, it did turn out that way. So thank you so much, Andre, for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much.
And we'll be right back with Ladies of Another View on Beck.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
Indoor football is back in Bismarck. Bucks football season is right around the corner. Grab a friend or family member for a night of action-packed, hard-hitting entertainment. The Bucks open at the Bismarck Event Center May 8th as they take on the Massachusetts Pirates. Catch the sweetest seats in the house right on the sidelines with VIP service at a Bucks turf table. Available now for single game purchases. Secure your tickets today by calling 701-595-0771. Bucks football, half the field and double the fun.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America. Over the last 12 years, you've helped MyPillow create thousands of jobs right here in the USA.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
That's why I invented MyPillow. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned. I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled MyPillow, and to thank you for your support, I'm going to pass the savings directly on to you. For example, you get my 6-piece towel sets, regular $109.99, now only $44.98, or MyPillow dog beds for as low as $19.99 with your promo code.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit mypillow.com.
Ever been in a cave before?
It's our first time.
All right.
Where are you going?
I'll see you at the car!
How will we?
The car! Your offer's been accepted. Ever bought a house before?
It's our first time.
All right.
Where are you going?
I'll see you at the closing.
But how will we?
The closing!
Hey everybody, I'm Doug Billings, your host of The Right Side with Doug Billings on Beck News. We bring you high-profile guests, ladies and gentlemen, exclusive guests. Now, you're not going to see these guests in most of the mainstream media outlets. Another thing that I do here is give guests a platform to speak freely. You're not going to see me censor anybody. Please join us, won't you? Weeknights right here on Beck TV and online at beck.news. Cheers.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Beck, and now we have with us Jared Hendricks. Jared's been on before, and he's becoming a regular with some of the Beck News show because he's so active in politics locally, and that's why we wanted to have you on. He is a grassroots organizer, but you're also the chairman of District 38 GOP chairman, right?
Yes, that's correct, up in Minot.
Okay, can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, so basically you have 47 legislative district chairs within the Republican Party, and that makes up the leadership of the North Dakota Republican Party. So there's 4 districts in Minot, 3, 5, 38, and 40. So there's 4 Republican chairs, there's 4 Democrat chairs, so I'm one of the 4 Republican chairs.
And you have another job, you know, you're a contractor, but you are just very involved in politics. Not everybody is. Right. And I have a few charts I just wanted to take a look at here because we say we want people to be more engaged, but we have to also realize that as they have become more engaged lately, but they are becoming more radicalized on the left. So we have to be aware of that. And if we are in the center, if we're on the right, maybe we need to up the bar a little bit and get more involved also. So this is, you know, people who consider themselves politically active and engaged. It's going up, but they also they're getting younger. And let's go on to the next chart. Regarding the recent election for president, which of the following statements do you agree with most? Joe Biden won the election fairly. Well, wow. Right. Conservative people, 54% are not feeling, well, let's see. Okay, I'm breaking this down also according to whether you've had a college degree or you're a college student. And the more educated you are, it seems that the more radicalized you're becoming on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
And that Republicans, by and large, a majority believe the election wasn't fair, whereas on the left, almost all of them think that it was fair.
I think that's interesting there were enough problems with the election to question whether Joe Biden won. And the college student is the highest percentage there at 59%. And to me, that just speaks to that age group, that idealistic attitude of we're going to achieve utopia. I think every generation goes through that.
Sure.
And so that seems to prove out in that statistic to me.
Well, and I have one last chart. One last chart, okay? And it might be hard to read, but 59% of 18 to 29-year-olds of Americans approve of President Biden's job performance overall. 65% approve of his handling of the coronavirus, and 57% approve of what he's doing with race relations.
What are they smoking?
So, okay, Jan.
Come on.
But that's, you know, that's what they're finding. Jared, what do you think of that? What are you seeing in the field?
Yeah, well,
you're a young guy, right?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. Yeah, I think that information is pretty telling of how effective the indoctrination is in our universities. I kind of have a saying that our country's kind of messed up by all the smart people. We have some of the stupidest smart people in the world. I mean, you don't have to look any farther than people like Anthony Fauci and others that can't see the forest for the trees, and sometimes it's people that have a highly specialized area of expertise, and they actually don't understand the bigger picture of the impact of what they advocate on people's lives and things like that. And so I think you get into a similar kind of bubble in coming out of higher education. And we have this problem all over the country, but even in North Dakota, where you have this Marxist ideology, critical theory, this postmodern philosophy. And this isn't just some conspiracy boogeyman. I'm not saying it's like, in every engineering class, but it is in the social sciences, in the literary studies, and it's very pervasive. It's been there for many decades. And so, I did a lot of work with college students. I surveyed probably in North and South Dakota, probably about 3,000 students. And one of the things that we tracked was their graduation year. And when you look at the freshman class and you look at the senior class, there is a difference. The senior class starts to skew more liberal in the data. And we'd ask them to self-identify, like conservative, liberal, libertarian, whatever. And so I thought that was really interesting.
And I remember researching when the whole business of Common Core was coming to the forefront in the legislature and through the state and DPI and everything, and just doing research on a national level of who's behind this, what is this? And I had pulled out my notes the other day for some reason, and right at the top of my page, in quotations, I had social justice. And I thought, that's interesting because I did that back how many years ago, and yet it was all about how that was so woven into all the curriculum. And so the critical race theory and some of the things we're hearing about now every day, it seems like, it's like that was an integral part of the Common Core philosophy that was going to be implemented in all of our education. And
Yeah, and I mean, if you want me to, I could trace it back to kind of the beginning of that little history lesson here. So critical theory really emerged out of the Frankfurt School in Germany in the 1930s. And they were essentially communist, they were Marxist. And what happened is after the failure of Bolshevism and after the failure of that ideology, it was always based on the idea of class warfare. And then so what happened is in the Frankfurt School, they retooled this idea and they applied Marxist revolutionary ideology to culture instead of class. And they ended up fleeing Germany because of the rise of Nazism, and they came to the United States. They came to Columbia University. From that point, it has spread across the United States, this ideology. And so you have this idea of pitting different cultural catalysts to create division. So you have like men versus women, black versus white, believer versus non-believer. Does this start to make sense? You see these divisions in our culture now. Well, it's because of the underlying ideology that they're taught. And so it really is pervasive. That's why we have, all last year you had 19-year-olds who probably knew very little about history tearing down statues of historical figures all over the place. I mean, it's insane. They really have no clue what they're doing. But it's all because of what they're told. They literally believe that this is injustice. They believe in these concepts that words are violence, that truth is relative, that you have your truth, I have my truth, there's no objective truth. And we see this reflected in our culture now, where we don't even believe in biological men or biological women. I mean, this stuff, it's mind-boggling.
And it all goes into how does it make you feel? Well, when you get the feelings in there, when you're trying to make logical and good decisions, feelings aren't necessarily the best way to go about that,
Right.
Well, it doesn't feel good. Well, if you don't want to go through some pain now, you're going to go through a whole lot more later,
Yeah.
And they get so wound up, like, the statues from last summer, a lot of them were tearing down statues of abolitionists.
Right.
And you think, do you not know who this person was? Like, he ended slavery.
easy to
Why are
see
you
they didn't.
tearing his statue down? They just are ready. They get all stirred up, and they become angry at the establishment, and they're willing to just start tearing things down and burning things down. I mean, how do you, and where does it come from? I mean, you already kind of talked about that. It's in some of the liberal schools where it's just seeping in, and it comes in through Marxism. How can you turn that around?
Well, you know, that's a big question. I mean,
30
really.
seconds or less.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, we
I mean,
can keep talking
yeah.
about it after the break. But
Sure. Yeah. I mean, really, it comes down to the family. That's where it should be. It should be that parents are teaching their children what it means to be an American, why our system is better and different, and why we kind of got theoretically past all those divisions that, liberty brings people together, and that was the idea that America was based on. We had all these different immigrant groups from all over Africa, Europe, everywhere, and we all came together to have this extraordinary nation. It was because liberty, if we all accept the idea of freedom and liberty, it brings people together.
Right.
It's true.
Right. So we'll be right back. We're going to continue talking with Jared. Plenty more to say when we come right back with Ladies of Another View on Back.
Since opening in Hebron in 1940, Dakota Community Bank and Trust has been your hometown bank. Our mission has been to provide modern banking convenience with old-fashioned hometown service. We've grown with the communities we serve through year-round events, countless sponsorships, and nearly 7,000 hours of volunteering each year. Learn more about our 80-year history at dakotacommunitybank.com.
Watch No Filter with me, Debbie Schlussel, for no-nonsense, unfiltered analysis of the news that matters to you. You'll see engaging guests,
It began a 444-day nightmare.
entertaining analysis, and it has everything to do with something that happened in history, and honest movie reviews. Trust me, this is just atrocious. No Filter with Debbie, weeknights at 10 p.m. Central on Beck News and online at beck.news.
Respect, innovation, trust, and excellence. These core values can be seen in every building built by Straightway Construction. In the community for over 15 years, Straightway Construction has become the premier construction company for commercial projects. From dirt to design and framing to finish, Straightway Construction is your #1 choice. You won't have to look far to find a project that has that Straightway touch. Call them today or go online to straightwayconstruction.com and let them make your vision a reality.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America. Over the last 12 years, you've helped MyPillow create thousands of jobs right here in the USA.
When I got my pillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
That's why I invented MyPillow. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned. I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled MyPillow, and to thank you for your support, I'm gonna pass the savings directly on to you. Go to MyPillow.com right now to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. For example, you can get my premium MyPillows, regularly $69.98, now just $29.98, the lowest price ever.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit mypillow.com.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Back, and we are once again joined with Jared Hendricks, who is a grassroots organizer in his spare time. I don't know if it's your spare time. Do you just not sleep? Because I know you're so busy.
Lately, no, I haven't been sleeping very much, but no, I've been doing this stuff on and off for like 13 years. I mean, full disclosure, I have been employed at times during that on campaigns, but most of this is just volunteer work. So.
Well, you coming in here today was volunteer.
Yeah.
And I got you on the phone yesterday, and I could hear all this banging and clanging because you were changing a flat tire. And I said, hey, I got an opening. Can you come in? And here you are.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, you bet. It's
And
very nice to have you.
before the break, we talked about that the family is an important training ground and learning ground to raise kids up to really appreciate our country and our freedoms and the Constitution and our history. But what's going on in the schools? Because people talk about, oh, on the East Coast and West Coast, they're more liberal. But what's going on in the center country, as long as you know?
Yeah, and I, by no means am I an expert on North
Right.
Dakota schools, but, you know, we do have, I think, in general, a lack of engagement with parents, I think, and some of it almost seems by design sometimes. I mean, I was at the Minot school board meeting couple weeks, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they do these meetings at 4 p.m.
Right.
Wow.
You know, and it's like, how do parents who work jobs, how do they get there to these meetings? You almost kind of have to think of this by design, and they sit up there, and excuse me, and I think, excuse me, and I think that, you know, even though the president of the school board seems like a nice guy up there, I'm not going to say anything bad about anyone, but they're up there, they're perched at the front of the room, and they have the school administrators there who are really the employees. You know, the parents are the boss, and they work for the parents ultimately and the school boards, but the administrators and the teachers unions run the show, and they have so much influence. I think that's a big part of the problem. And, you know, I might get attacked by saying, oh, well, you're attacking teachers. It's like, no, there's plenty of wonderful teachers, but it's just natural that they have a self-interest that is about their jobs. Like, for example, at that Minot meeting, you know, one of the things that came up was we were discussing whether to get rid of the mask ban in the Minot schools. And one of the things that one of the school board members there, who was a retired teacher, by the way, one of the things she said was that, well, we're just concerned about our employees. And I'm thinking, well, I'm sorry, I'll be a little harsh here, but if you're a teacher, maybe you shouldn't be a teacher if you're afraid of germs. I mean, you're around kids all day long.
Truly.
So
The same thing happened at the Bismarck Public School meeting, and Jen and I were both there, and there were a lot of parents telling some stories, some difficulties with their kids with anxiety, and
Yes.
I mean, there was one child in Grand Forks that committed suicide because she was told, oh, you're not wearing your mask right, you could kill your principal, you could kill your grandma. And
Yes.
she got very upset by this.
It's very
but
tragic.
A lot of the parents that were speaking out were feeling like they weren't being heard, nobody was responding to them. And finally, a couple weeks ago, they did drop the mask mandate, or maybe that was last week. Time is a blur sometimes, you know. It does seem like, and one of the reasons they said they weren't doing it right away is because they wanted the employees to have time to get vaccines. But they had already had some time, so that shouldn't have been on the table at all.
Right.
Like, well, they could have done it already, and they still can.
But you know, it seems as though they were being bullies. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. You know, if you tell the kids here, if you wear the mask, you get to go and play with your friends, and you get to come back to school.
Yeah.
And then they won't listen to the parents that continued to write in, that continued to call in. And it wasn't until the parents all gathered together and came to the school board meeting, and they brought legislators with them, they brought doctors in, and all of those people showed up, and that's when they backed down.
Yeah.
And they'll say it wasn't for that reason, but we know very well that it was.
Yep.
But it goes back to power of the people as well. And,
Correct.
And I get all that. But, you know, I can remember several times in my career of raising kids and having them in school and going and wanting results because this wasn't right or that wasn't right, especially when sex ed came into junior high. I'm old. I remember those days. And as a parent, I guess I would like to know what can be done where you don't feel like you're so all alone in your stance with, you know, you can't take on that machine called education if you've got one voice, two voice. You better have
You
a
need
full
to gather
house.
together.
Right.
And so, you know, I think more and more parents, especially with COVID, they're going, how do we even start? Where do we go? What do we do? And I guess I'd defer to you, Jared.
Yeah.
What are you seeing happening with that?
Yeah, well, you know, I guess it's a catchphrase, but you got to get local, you got to focus local, and I think generally people will find if they really analyze how much time they spend focusing on some of the federal stuff, which is important, of course, but if they really kind of look at their time commitments, I think they'll find that they might have a lot more time than they might think to focus on things that really matter. That might sound a little preachy, but it's true, and I think that we need to get our communities together. That's probably the biggest part of the problem we have in division in this country, that people don't talk to one another anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have friends in Virginia that I've known for my whole life that some of them don't even seem to want to talk to me anymore when they found out I supported President Trump, and it's just so mind-boggling. I'm like, can't we just talk? You know, people need to come together and just talk in their communities, and I think if you start at that base level, I think you can make a lot of headway.
Right.
And we're very spoiled in North Dakota by how accessible everything is at the local level, and even at the school board level. A lot of these elections are won by a very small number of votes. It doesn't usually take a whole lot of financial resources. So, you know, your voice is a lot stronger than you think. If you get a good candidate, get a good person out there who's actually going to advocate for the voice of the parents, because really we forget the school board. You talk about Common Core, the school board has the authority on curriculum in our state, ultimately. I think too often they get kind of bullied around a little bit by the administrators, but that's really where the authority is. So we just have to take the reins of it.
And some discussions I've had is that the school board gets more geared into, by default, you know, the budgeting and the, you know, how we're going to manage with the kids and where are we going to put them all and are we going to need a school? And I mean, all of the stuff that goes into that planning for today and the future. And the curriculum piece and the kids kind of get almost pushed to the side as far as individual, what are they learning? Are they getting the best bang for their buck? I don't know that I see as much emphasis on that as maybe it used to be back in the 1900s, you know?
Right.
But
well, we need to decide where the bucks come from. I mean, our state constitution says we should pay for all of K through 12 with regular general fund monies, and that's not happening. We are breaking our own constitution by collecting it through property taxes.
Right.
So there's got to be a big discussion with a whole lot of people to decide where the money should come from and how it should be spent. And we need to get our voices involved in that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, the state government in North Dakota is very wealthy, and that's something that, you know, we learned. We already knew that, but we learned this session, and we had biggest budget ever that's been passed, and no meaningful tax relief for the people of North Dakota this session whatsoever, and a super Republican majority. We always talk about low taxes. Well, where were the low taxes? You know, I could understand if we were maybe struggling as a state, but we're not. We are very wealthy. This state is sitting on billions and billions of dollars. And that means that the people should get tax relief.
Yes. Right. Well, you're a grassroots organizer, so that'll be a topic for another show. Thank you so much for coming today, Jared, and I know we'll have you again. We'll be right back with Ladies of Another View on Back.
Respect, innovation, trust, and excellence. These core values can be seen in every building built by Straightway Construction. In the community for over 15 years, Straightway Construction has become the premier construction company for commercial projects. From dirt to design and framing to finish, Straightway Construction is your #1 choice. You won't have to look far to find a project that has that Straightway touch. Call them today or go online to straightwayconstruction.com and let them make your vision a reality.
Deciding how to promote your business can be hard. Visit the professionals at Dakota Promotions and Printing and let them help you through your struggle. Dakota Promotions provides promotional items and apparel from corporate gifts to team shirts and everything in between. With quick turnaround times and friendly service, they are your best choice. And best yet, you're shopping local. Visit them online at dakotapromo.com or stop in their showroom at 320 West Main in Mandan. Dakota Promotions, delivering promotions just for you.
Every great pizza has a secret. At New York To Go, that secret lies in our perfectly recreated New York water, the key ingredient to making our signature New York-style pizza. We also feature gyros, with the region's only gyro meat spit, plus Nathan's hot dogs, calzones, and our delicious jumbo buffalo wings. Try a 14-inch or our special giant 20-inch pizza tonight. You gotta know how to fold them if you want to hold them. New York To Go, we deliver for you.
40 years ago, Aero Service Team started with one truck and lots of hard work.
Times may have changed, but the hard work that we put in to get your lives back in order after fire, water, and disaster hasn't.
Over the years, we've seen so many families lose their belongings due to water and fire damage. Restoring homes back to the original state has made every hour of hard work well worth it.
Thank you for trusting our family with yours.
When disaster strikes, you only have to make one call. Aero Service Team does it all.
Indoor football is back in Bismarck. Bucks football season is right around the corner. Grab a friend or family member for a night of action-packed, hard-hitting entertainment. The Bucks open at the Bismarck Event Center May 8th as they take on the Massachusetts Pirates. Catch the sweetest seats in the house right on the sidelines with VIP service at a Bucks turf table. Available now for single game purchases. Secure your tickets today by calling 701-595-0771. Bucks football, half the field and double the fun.
I'm Rick Becker from No Apologies. Welcome to your after-hours oasis of sanity.
How can these people not see that they're just clowns?
We help simplify and educate you on things going on in the legislature and around the country.
Asking the hard-hitting questions.
But also having Lee Stack and Sid and Marty Croft stuff, and we've talked about that sometimes. It's bad.
Watch us weeknights at 9 Central on Beck News and online at beck.news.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Beck, and we are already at the lighter side. But before I show you something that I don't know if it's light or not, you'll see. I thought it was funny or strange, anyways. But I want to
scaring me, Patty.
Somebody gave it to me and thought it was funny. We can talk about it later. But I just wanted to draw your attention to the website, NorthDakotaPatriots.org. That is Jared Hendricks's website. So if you want to learn more about making America great again and organizing and getting involved, he put together a lot of information. Once again, it's NorthDakotaPatriots.org. Okay, so I don't know if you think this is funny or not, but it's bizarre. Can we all agree it's bizarre?
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
I'll go with bizarre.
Okay, all right.
Just
so,
the title is
right
bizarre
along with
enough.
our viewers.
Let's watch, and we will talk about it later. Something strange happened with two neighbors in Michigan.
Cow poop smell.
Well, you might expect to smell a little cow poop, especially if you live on a farm in Lodi Township near Ann Arbor. And on Tuesday, the hottest day of the year, about 80 degrees.
It's bad.
But the cow poop is not really coming from the cows. Well, it is, but it's also coming from this.
It's just a shit pile over there.
Well, we'll just call it a poop wall, a 250-foot long poop wall. That's really close to the house.
They probably sold, like, it has some cultural or agricultural benefit.
Well, not really. See, the poop wall is really all part of a family feud.
They normally spread it on the field, but decided to make a fence out of it.
Wayne, where does all this poop come from?
Comes from the cows.
And that would be where Wayne's grandfather, Edward Lamberth, developed the farm 100 years ago. Edward had two sons, Owen and Raymond, and then the property was divided. And last year, when there was a dispute over a property line, well, the poop hit the farm. You've been around poop all your life on this farm. I mean, this shouldn't be that big a deal for you.
No, but when you got renters, you know, they have to live with this every day. I come here to mow the lawn.
And they are consistently ruining my morning as I walk out.
Can't leave the window open because the whole upstairs will smell like it.
How you doing? And there's the guy that put up the poop wall. Could you just talk about the poop wall here?
You mean the poop wall? It's a compost pit?
Yeah, but Wayne doesn't like it though. I guess he wanted to go back to planting the corn. Now, Wayne has tried to do something about the poop wall, but local and state officials said no. Wayne might be complaining about the poop, but I think it's totally legal. The poop's on this guy's property, not Wayne's.
Poop, 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 yes.
Oh, I just got a good whiff of it.
Yep, and once it gets warmed up, it's like you can smell it all the way. Yeah, definitely.
So we can be glad that we don't have that outside our houses. And I don't mean to give anybody ideas if you're having a war with your neighbors, but they're brothers, for crying out loud.
But you know what? Haven't you ever heard that saying, that smell out there? Do you know what that smell is? Some people think it's the smell of poo. No. That's the smell of money if you're raising cattle.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't think in this case.
You know what, though? I grew up on a farm, and there were days, yeah, and the manure pile. But you know what else? There's a lot of people that they'd give, well, not maybe their whole left arm, but, you know, they'd give to have that to put on their garden or their lawn, or it's amazing fertilizer if you get it at the right time. But-
Well, so Carmen, you really would value this, but
well,
it's on,
you'd have to
no,
load
if
it
it's
up
a
and
pig farm, though, that's a
Oh,
whole different
my gosh.
ballgame.
Yes. Well, you know,
we
it's
still
no
live near a
different
pig
than the
farm.
poultry or turkey farms and barns when you're driving down I-94 in Minnesota. You get a whiff of that all of a sudden, and it's like your eyes are going to water, and
Yep.
it's worse than hitting a skunk on the road.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
The
awful.
ammonia.
Yes. Especially on hot days. We used to run a
Yes.
group home in Montana, and there was a pig farm across a big
Oh,
long
boy.
field.
Oh, boy.
And if the wind blew a certain way and it was a hot day, the whole house would just smell like it. But this guy did it on purpose because they're having a property dispute.
Right.
That's not very nice.
That sounds like a sibling rivalry where somebody thought mom and dad gave them preferential treatment.
Right? But you know that guy that he was interviewing, he didn't seem that mad really, so I'm wondering, that was one of the brothers, right? In
the guy
t-shirt
who was
with the hat on?
the object of the revenge. But the guy that built the wall wasn't going to talk,
No,
so
he
he's
was in
not
the little golf
he's not
cart.
such a friendly guy.
No.
Right. But the guy the one guy, he didn't seem that mad. Sometimes, part of it, I thought, I wonder if it was just kind of a prank. You know how brothers will prank
I don't
each
think
other?
so.
I don't think so either.
No. I'm trying to cut him some
Yeah,
slack.
you're being
you know.
too generous. Yeah, and you're all excited about the fertilizing effects.
Well,
and like,
yeah.
You're
Those
definitely
cows
looking on
work-
the bright
well,
side.
those cows work hard for that, you know, so.
I don't know. I just
They got to chew and re-chew, and I mean, there's a lot of
Well,
work. Yeah.
that's true. It's more than once.
Yeah, I think it's too bad though that legally he can do that because it's his property. I'm sure in town you couldn't, but out in the country, that's just the way it is. Speaking of the country, Jan and I yesterday spent the day in Napoleon, and when I say the day, we didn't get back till after 7. We couldn't pull ourselves away.
It was such a blast. I
It
mean,
was.
the people are so delightful. I can't wait until we do our show down there.
Yep, we're going to do a My Hometown segment from Napoleon in a couple weeks, and we hope you'll join us tomorrow. Coming up next is Joel Heitkamp with Down the Road with Joel Heitkamp. We'll be right back tomorrow. Hope you will too on Ladies of Another View on Beck.
See you soon.
Bye now.